In my last video, I talked about ways in which our egos can keep us stagnant and standing still in its attempts to keep us safe, risk-free, and far away from death. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it at the end of this one so that you can check it out. The truth is, if we're going to get any closer to our desired reality and our dreams, then we can't allow our egos to manage all our affairs. We have to break that spell. We're going to need to deconstruct and renew our minds when it comes to our ideas about safety and risk. So make sure you stick around because I'm about to tell you how. I mentioned in the last video that not only was a life that was 100% safe and risk-free likely to be unfulfilling, but that I would argue that it was actually the more dangerous and risky path to take. And I'm going to use the concept of safe uncertainty to break that down. The concept of safe uncertainty was coined by a family therapist called Barry Mason. It's a framework used to explore how we perceive risk and how our perception of risk impacts our motivation to make changes to our lives. The model's made up of 4 quadrants: safe certainty, safe uncertainty, unsafe certainty, and unsafe uncertainty. The safe, unsafe continuum of the model is about how the risk itself is being perceived by us, i.e., how safe or unsafe is this thing or this situation that I'm being presented with. The certainty, uncertainty part of the model is about how much we think we know about the risk being presented, i.e., how predictable or unpredictable is the outcome of this situation. Now, this model reminds me about how our egos operate in the safe certainty part of the quadrant, wanting to guarantee safety by having zero risk and wanting to have certainty in knowing and therefore being able to predict what will happen next, which gives us a sense that we are in control. In fact, our ego conflates being safe with being certain and able to predict what will happen next. And as well prepared as that sounds, it's actually inflexible, exhausting, and potentially dangerous. Mason points out the flaws of safe certainty, highlighting how rigid it is. What it essentially does is close the doors of possibility and imagination because it's already so sure of what is. It doesn't leave space to wonder or to crack open the door to see what else could be out there. It doesn't allow us to be exposed to new information, which shuts off our curiosity. It shuts off our critical thinking skills and our exposure to new opportunities. It doesn't allow for the renewing of our minds, which is the catalyst for our expansion. And if you'd like to start to explore that, have a read of my free ebooklet, 10 Mindset Shifts That Will Shift Your Reality. The link to access it is in the description box. When we allow ourselves to be managed by ego, which pulls us towards safe certainty, we cut ourselves off from our dreams and our creativity, and we make our worlds small. And I've put lots of onus on ego, but ego is only one part of a wide and complex system that keeps our lives small and fearful. Another significant part of that system is the conscious and subconscious messaging that we receive throughout our lives that deters us from risk-taking and makes us believe that our egoic nature must be right. I'll give you an example. If you switch on the TV for more than 10 seconds or open a random page of a newspaper, you'll be constantly reminded about the crashing economy, the cost of living crisis, and job scarcity. So once you've soaked all of that in, where does that leave you with your dream of wanting to quit your job and start your own business? If you've grown up in a religious environment, you may have grown up hearing about the eternal punishment that you'll face if you don't follow God's rules. And your ability to follow God's rules is conflated with your morality. So what does this do to your curiosity and the questions that you have about what you're being taught? Where does it leave you when you experience God outside of the rules of your religion or in a different way to others? Ego might ask you, what if you get it all wrong and have to pay the price for eternity? Risky. So instead of exploring that curiosity and seeing where it leads, you close the door on it, you judge it, and you spend the rest of your life fearfully wondering whether you're in right standing with God. You keep your world safe and small in the hope that there's an afterlife where this sacrifice of self will pay off. And there are so many examples of how we're directly and indirectly convinced to live our lives in a way that is safe and certain, because if we remain sedated in that way, then the status quo is maintained. And for the minority that benefit when the majority follow the rules without question, us being in a condition where we are seeking safe certainty is absolutely perfect. It means that we'll stay within the lines, we'll believe what we're being told, we'll stay where we've been told to stay. Why? Because the statistics, the news reports, and the experts at the top all find a roundabout way of telling us that taking risks will be to our detriment. And before you know it, you've spent your whole life following the rules instead of pursuing and creating the life that you truly desire. Now, the reason why giving into ego and attempting to mainly live your life from a position of safe certainty is so dangerous is because it's rooted in scarcity. And what that does is it causes you to cling and claw onto what you know instead of being able to be in a flow state where you can trust, let go, and receive the new. And that will always be to your detriment. We live in a world of eternal expansion and infinite possibilities. And cutting yourself off from that in favour of what you know and what feels familiar will lead to loss. It's like having £10,000 today, and instead of putting that in the bank or investing it, you hide it under your bed. If that money can't come on the journey of inflation and expansion, in 10 years' time, it will rapidly have lost its value. It's like refusing to update your IT software because you prefer the older version. At some point, you're going to be unable to use the older version too because it's no longer compatible with the expanded software. You kill whatever you cling too tightly to. So if safe certainty isn't the way forward, what should we be challenging ourselves to lean towards instead? A position of safe uncertainty. A position that requires some level of trust and surrender. A shift from focusing on the micro and trying to control everything in your small world, which isn't even possible, to the macro, surrendering to the truth that you can't know everything that there is to know, let alone control it. Surrendering to the idea that even trying could result in shame, failure, rejection, and ridicule that feels like such a big threat that our minds tell us that it could kill us, but yet still having a deep, deep trust that you are safe, that you are being contained by something much bigger than you, and that because of that, regardless of the outcome, your soul is safe and you will be okay. And from that place, you give yourself permission to try. Safe uncertainty sets us free to be curious and critical thinkers instead of fearful ones. To ask ourselves questions like, what might happen if I did allow? What if I greeted the unknown with curiosity rather than automatically perceiving a threat? What might I stand to gain? When we choose in any moment to do what's counterintuitive and lean into safe uncertainty, we're choosing to lean into life's flow instead of pushing against it. We're putting ourselves in a position to learn rather than to defend. We can lean into our curiosity and expose ourselves to new information and therefore new experiences, which is the key to our expansion. Safe uncertainty gives us the opportunity to inch closer to our dreams instead of writing them off as unrealistic wishes. With safe uncertainty, we're able to open ourselves up to the abundance of this universe and therefore to a life which is continuously expanding and unfolding. With each new experience, our worlds expand and our limiting beliefs are disproved over and over and over again. And this builds in us a deep, deep, deep confidence. We begin to realize that we have options and that the possibilities for us are endless. And knowing that leaves space for the excitement, the wonder, the mystery, the magic of life. It opens our worlds as we lean in and we become more and more aware of our own ability to create. It reminds us that our lives can expand beyond what we've perceived to be our limitations. Even with the worst possible outcomes at the back of our minds, it sets us free to try and to count any outcome as exposure to new information and therefore as a gain. So guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. What do you think about safe uncertainty? And are there any areas of your life where you're operating in safe certainty that you'd like to try and swap out for safe uncertainty? Let me know, and I'll see you soon.